Hi, Scott Machine Gun Dad. This is a police story slash kind of address some of the videos that are out there on the SIG P320. First of all, let's be clear. I am not a fan of the 320. I am not a fan of any striker-fired Tupperware. However, you'll see a lot of videos where guns go off in people's holsters. Police officers, first of all, you need to look at the police officer. Is a police officer the kind of officer that takes care of himself? He's in shape, his uniform is clean, his radio gear is shined, his shoes are shined, or is he overweight, sloppily dressed slob? Alright, take his pride in his, or lack of pride in his personal appearance and apply that to his gear. Why am I saying that? Well, if you follow my channel, you know I was a firearms instructor. When we switched to Berettas, we went to a different retention holster than the 357s. The Beretta had a clip, little plastic clip, looked like this, in the bottom. So when you shove the handguard with the Beretta in, the front of the handguard is flat, it would snap in the plastic. It'd be like that. That was an additional thing in case you unsnap the Beretta, the gun wouldn't just jump around in your holster. One of my jobs as a firearms instructor was to carry a utility knife. And every year I had to inspect those holsters because guys would scrape them up putting the Beretta in and out of the holsters, and the leather would peel, and you get these little fingers of leather sticking out to where the gun is. We did it mostly because it interfered with rapid and proper holstering and deholstering of the weapon, but apply that theory to the SIG 320, where that piece of leather is now sticking out in front of the trigger on a 320. I'd say I shaved that type of spur off our holsters 50 times in the 10 years we had Berettas, 12 times. That was just me. Multiplied it by, 60 other stations across the state. That's a lot of potential mishaps. Now, we had double action only Berettas. It wasn't going to push that trigger all the way back. But having a gun like a SIG with a preload, or any striker fired gun without a trigger safety that has a preloaded firing pin, there's potential. And the other one is just personal slobbiness. I had a crime guy. Now, when we qualified, you had to wear your duty belt. You couldn't wear your own personal belt. So the crime guy comes out to the range, and we're getting ready. I inspect it, and I inspect the handguns at the thing. And for some reason, I don't know why, but I didn't inspect his holster. So he's carrying his Beretta and his personal rig on his belt. I said, dude, you got to qualify with a duty belt. Oh, okay, it's in my desk. I'll get it. Go to the range, which is less than a mile from the barracks. And we get there, and he gets out, and of course, typical crime guy, he put a little weight on since he was in patrol, so he's readjusting his web belt, letting a couple notches out, and he puts it on. He puts his Beretta in. His Beretta is sticking about this far out of the holster, and he gets so far enough out he can't even snap it. I'm like, what the fuck? He's a crime guy. He never even uses the holster. I didn't think to inspect his holster because it didn't have any freaking wear on it. So I pull the gun out of his holster and I look down inside, and there's something in there, and I have him take his belt off. There is the eraser from a pencil, the little pink thing that goes in a yellow pencil, down in those little plastic grip of his holster. So when he jammed his Beretta in there, that eraser blocked the gun from clipping in. Well, how the fuck did that happen? Well, he wasn't using the holster. It went into the drawer in his desk with his other tools, which are pencils and pens. Somewhere an errant eraser ended up inside the holster, and then when he tried to stick the gun in, he just drove it down into the locking mechanism. Point of the story. Yes, I think there's a problem with the SIG 320. I don't necessarily think that 95% of them are because of the gun. I think 95% of them are because police officers are fucking lazy. They are improperly trained. They are not taught to maintain their weapons. And the ones that do it on their own. Another proof of how I can say that, I went to Uniontown as a corporal. I was, let's see, I made corporal, and I went to Uniontown in 1999. I've been on the job for 16 years. So I get to Uniontown, my first midnighter out, which is like my third day there. I go up. I had a line inspection. I said, and my line inspection was, everybody take your weapons out, make sure to unload and put them on the table. I had a 10-man platoon. 8 of the weapons were so dirty. They were not clean, and these were young guys. They were not clean, they were not maintained. I had them go back down in their lockers in shifts, you know. One car was 2 guys. You go downstairs, I want your weapons clean, I want them brought up back up here. And then we did that to that thing. And they knew every time I ran midnighters, my guys had their weapons cleaned and oiled. Take that, these were young guys, so their guns were just dirty. Take that to a guy who's got 16, 20 years on the job, who's never taken care of his weapon, and give him a SIG 320. Yeah, do I think the SIG is not the best choice? Yeah, I don't think SIG is the best choice. I love SIGs, but it better be a 226 or a 229. But I think a lot of the problems with the SIGs discharging are literally what SIG says, operator error, poor maintenance and poor training on law enforcement. And you can flame me all you want saying I'm getting paid to help SIG or whatever. I'm not. SIG doesn't even know I freaking exist. It's just common sense. If you were in law enforcement, you know the guys you worked with. You know how fucking lazy some of these guys are. Some of these guys, I had guys on the job that couldn't qualify because they only shot once a year, and that was because the state forced them to. And you're going to give that guy a SIG 320, which requires constant maintenance? That's a disaster waiting to happen. Do I think a SIG 320 is good for law enforcement? No, I do not. But do I think all the accidental discharges they're having are SIG's fault? No, I do not. I would love to exchange information with people who can prove me otherwise. That's what the comment section was for. Comment away. I will read them.